Imagine a place so cold, so remote, so violently hostile to human life that the entire human race collectively agreed, no one owns it. No army defends it. No flag flies permanently over it. A place sealed by an international treaty, the Antarctic Treaty System, since 1959. A place where the wind screams at 200 miles per hour, where temperatures plummet to minus 128 degrees Fahrenheit, cold enough to freeze your lungs before you exhale, where the sun disappears for 6 straight months and the darkness swallows everything. We call it Antarctica, the last continent, the forbidden continent. But here is the thing about forbidden places. They are hiding something. Beneath the surface of Antarctica, beneath more than 2 miles of solid, ancient ice, scientists have been making discoveries so staggering, so world-altering, that they are quietly rewriting everything we thought we knew about our planet, about life, about time itself. What they found changes everything. To understand what scientists are finding, you must first understand the scale of what we're dealing with. Antarctica is not simply a sheet of ice. It is a continent, the 5th largest on Earth, larger than Europe, larger than Australia, and 98% of it is buried under an ice sheet that, in places, reaches 3.5 kilometers thick. That is over 2 miles of compressed, ancient frozen water stacked on top of a land that most of us never think about. For most of human history, we assumed that beneath that ice, there was nothing, just cold rock, a dead floor. We were magnificently, breathtakingly wrong. It started with radar. In the 1950s and 1960s, scientists began bouncing radio waves through the ice to measure its thickness. They expected flat returns, clean signals bouncing off bedrock. Instead, something impossible appeared in the data. Smooth, still reflections, the signature of liquid water, miles below the surface. Under all that crushing ice, there were lakes down there, real liquid lakes. Living in the dark, the largest of them was so enormous, it took scientists years to believe what they were seeing. They named it Lake Vostok. Buried beneath the Russian Vostok Station in East Antarctica, under nearly 4 full kilometers of ice. And it is not a pond. It is a vast, pressurized freshwater body roughly the size of Lake Ontario, one of North America's Great Lakes, completely sealed from the outside world. For how long? Scientists estimate Lake Vostok has been locked under the ice for somewhere between 15 and 20 million years. Modern humans have existed for 300,000 years. Lake Vostok has been sealed, dark, pressurized, and alive, potentially alive, for 50 times longer than our entire species has walked this earth. On June 20th, 1996, the journal Nature published the discovery formally. The world took notice, and scientists everywhere asked the same urgent question: what is living in there? In February 2012, after decades of drilling through 4 kilometers of ice, a feat of engineering that rivals landing on the moon, a Russian team finally penetrated the surface of Lake Vostok. The pressurized water shot upward through the borehole and froze. When scientists later analyzed it, they found DNA sequences, over 3,500 of them, bacteria, eukaryotes, organisms linked to deep-sea hydrothermal vents, and something else, a bacterial sequence with less than 86% similarity to any known life on Earth. The team's leader, Sergei Bulat, of the St. Petersburg Nuclear Physics Institute, called it unidentified and unclassified life, a species not found anywhere else on this planet, hidden under 2 miles of ice. For 15 million years, Lake Vostok was only the beginning. For years, scientists believed that a handful of subglacial lakes existed under Antarctica. Curiosities, outliers, geological accidents. Then the satellites arrived, and Antarctica's true face began to emerge. Using a decade of data from the European Space Agency's Cryosat-2 satellite, a mission launched in 2010, specifically to monitor polar ice, researchers began detecting something extraordinary. The surface of the Antarctic ice sheet was rising and falling, subtly, barely perceptibly, but measurably. And it was doing so because something deep beneath was filling and draining. Filling and draining. In research published in Nature Communications and announced by the ESA in September 2025, scientists revealed they had discovered 85 previously unknown subglacial lakes buried deep beneath the ice. 85. That is a 58% increase over what was previously known. The total number of confirmed active subglacial lakes beneath Antarctica now stands at 231. 231 lakes hidden under the ice, moving, draining into each other through rivers we cannot see. Part of a hydrological system of staggering complexity, operating in total darkness, in conditions that should, by every right, make liquid water impossible. Antarctic subglacial hydrology is much more dynamic than previously thought. Professor Anna Hogg, University of Leeds, ESA Polar Science Cluster, September 2025. These lakes are not static. They pulse, they breathe. They influence the movement of the glaciers above them, acting like lubricant between ice and rock, speeding up or slowing down the glacier's march toward the sea. And that, it turns out, has profound implications for every human being on this planet. But the lakes are only one layer of the mystery. Because in July 2024, published in the journal Science Advances and reported by Scientific American, geologists made another astonishing announcement. Beneath the ice of West Antarctica, they had traced the remains of an ancient river system, a river that once flowed for nearly 1,000 miles across the continent. 1,000 miles, the length of the Rhine, the Danube, and the Thames combined. The research team, led by sedimentologist Johann Klages of the Alfred Wegener Institute in Germany, analyzed sediment cores and found lipid biomarkers, chemical signatures of cyanobacteria that live in fresh water. They traced the ancient river's path from the Transantarctic Mountains, winding approximately 930 miles before draining into the Amundsen Sea. This river did not flow a few thousand years ago. It flowed approximately 40 million years ago, when Antarctica was not a frozen wasteland, but a green, forested continent, warm enough to support life. And just in case that wasn't enough, in a report from Durham University and published widely in 2024, scientists used the RadarSat satellite constellation, a Canadian satellite system, to peer beneath the East Antarctic ice sheet. 2 kilometers down, they found something that stopped them cold. A landscape. A whole, preserved ancient landscape. River valleys, hills, carved terrain. Untouched for 34 million years. Completely intact. A world that has not felt sunlight since before the earliest ancestors of humans existed. It's like uncovering a time capsule. Dr. Stuart Jameson, Durham University. Here is a question that has haunted biologists for decades. Where is the boundary of life? We know life exists in boiling thermal vents at the bottom of the ocean. We know it survives in acid lakes, in the driest deserts on Earth, at the top of the atmosphere, in solid rock miles underground, but under 2 miles of ice, sealed from sunlight for millions of years, in water under crushing pressure with almost no nutrients and no energy source we can identify? Apparently, yes. There too, we've already spoken of Lake Vostok, but in December 2021, a team drilled more than 1,600 feet into the Larsen Ice Shelf on the eastern coast of the Antarctic Peninsula. They expected a narrow, cold conduit of water. They found a rushing, living, underground river, complete with amphipods, small crustaceans, darting through the dark current. A river that had never been seen, that no human had ever touched, teeming with life. Then came January 2025, a date that will be remembered in biology for a very long time. On January 13th, 2025, an iceberg the size of Chicago broke away from the George VI ice shelf in the Bellingshausen Sea. Scientists designated it Iceberg 8084. In the weeks that followed, as the world watched with concern, this was another sign of accelerating Antarctic ice loss. A team aboard the Schmidt Ocean Institute's research vessel, RFV Falker, pivoted their plans. They reached the newly exposed seafloor on January 25, 2025. No human being had ever been there. The ice had sealed that patch of ocean floor for, as scientists would soon determine, decades, possibly centuries. They lowered a remotely operated submersible, ROV Sebastian, more than 1,000 meters into the dark water, and what they saw silenced the crew. Sponges, enormous sponges, growing so slowly, sometimes less than 2 centimeters per year, that their sheer size suggested they had been alive for hundreds of years. Corals, anemones, giant phantom jellyfish with bells over 1 meter across and arms stretching 10 meters into the dark. Icefish, giant sea spiders, octopuses, an entire thriving ecosystem hidden under the ice, untouched in a world of total darkness and near freezing water. We didn't expect to find such a thriving ecosystem. The first thing we saw was a huge sponge with a crab on it. That was already quite surprising. Dr. Patricia Eschetti, expedition scientist, Schmidt Ocean Institute, March 2025. Over the next 8 days of exploration, the team documented what would become a landmark discovery. At least 6 new species were identified, 6 species no human had ever seen, living under the ice, in the dark, thriving. The findings were published and reported globally in March 2025, but the implications run much deeper than a catalog of new species. Because these organisms were not surviving, they were flourishing. They had built complex communities, food webs, dependencies, hierarchies of life in a place where life was supposed to be impossible. And as biologists studied the sponge colonies, organisms that grow almost imperceptibly slowly, they realized something vertiginous. These communities had likely been alive for centuries, under the ice, in the dark, waiting for us to find them. While biologists were being astonished by life, geologists were being astonished by time. Ice is a time machine. Trapped inside glacial ice are tiny bubbles, pockets of ancient atmosphere, frozen in place exactly as they were when the snow fell thousands of years ago. By drilling ice cores and analyzing those bubbles, scientists can read the history of Earth's climate like a book. The composition of the air, the temperature, greenhouse gas concentrations, going back until now, about 800,000 years. But on October 28, 2025, a team of U.S. scientists published a discovery in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences that shattered that record entirely. Working in the remote Allen Hills region of East Antarctica, a blue ice area where ancient ice flows close to the surface, the team, led by Sarah Shackleton of the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution and John Higgins of Princeton University, drilled down and found ice that was 6 million years old. 6 million years, the oldest directly dated ice and air ever recovered on this planet. The research was funded by the National Science Foundation through the Center for Oldest Ice Exploration, a collaboration of 15 U.S. institutions. They dated the ice using argon isotope measurements, looking at the radioactive decay within the ice itself. Not an estimate, a direct measurement. 6 million years of atmosphere, trapped in bubbles, waiting in the silence of the Antarctic plateau. What did those bubbles tell us? Temperature records, reconstructed from oxygen isotopes, reveal that the Allen Hills region experienced a gradual long-term cooling of approximately 12 degrees Celsius over those 6 million years. The first direct measurement of Antarctica's multi-million-year cooling trend ever achieved. It rewrites our models of how the planet's climate evolved. And the team is not finished. Lead researcher Edward Brooke announced that Coldex would be heading back to the Allen Hills for more drilling, with plans for a comprehensive study of the region running from 2026 all the way to 2031. Their goal, to push the ice core record back even further, to find air that is 7 million years old, 8 million, to read the atmosphere of a world that predates the first members of our genus. 6 million years of air, trapped under the ice, waiting for someone to listen. Antarctica is not just a place, it is an archive. The most complete record of Earth's climate ever assembled, sealed in ice, and guarded by the most hostile environment on the planet. Everything we have described so far, the hidden lakes, the ancient rivers, the secret ecosystems, the oldest air on Earth, is astonishing. But there is one discovery beneath the ice of Antarctica that is not merely astonishing. It is terrifying. Its name is Thwaites Glacier. Scientists call it the Doomsday Glacier. And that name is not hyperbole. Thwaites sits on the West Antarctic ice sheet, spanning 192,000 square kilometers, an area comparable in size to Great Britain. It is the widest glacier on Earth, and it is melting fast right now at a rate that keeps polar scientists awake at night. Already, Thwaites accounts for approximately 4% of all global sea level rise each year. It is losing 50 billion metric tons of ice annually. But the number that matters is not what it is doing now. It is what it could do. If Thwaites collapses entirely, global sea levels rise by at least 65 centimeters, over 2 feet. That alone would flood coastlines where hundreds of millions of people live. Miami, Mumbai, Shanghai, Bangkok, Jakarta, Alexandria. But Thwaites is also a dam. Behind it, held back by its mass, lies the rest of the West Antarctic ice sheet. If Thwaites goes, if it destabilizes and collapses, the ice behind it could follow. Scientists have calculated that full West Antarctic collapse could mean 3 meters of sea level rise, 10 feet, an event that would redraw the maps of every coastal nation on Earth. What is happening to Thwaites right now? The answers, coming out of the ice, are grim. In May 2024, researchers at the University of California, Irvine, published findings in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences showing that warm seawater was intruding kilometers beneath the grounded ice, farther than any model had predicted. The seawater, pressurized and warm, was jacking up columns of ice more than half a mile thick. Vigorous melting, not gradual. Vigorous. In December 2025, CNN and Science Daily reported on a new study published in Nature Geosciences. Swirling underwater storms, chaotic ocean eddies were aggressively eating away at the base of Thwaites and its neighbor, Pine Island Glacier, accounting for 20% of the total melting over just a 9-month period. And critically, the melt was creating a feedback loop, cold, fresh meltwater mixing with warm salt water, generating more turbulence, driving more melting. In December 2025, research led from the University of Manitoba, published in the Journal of Geophysical Research, showed that the Thwaites Eastern Ice Shelf, the floating extension that is partly holding the glacier in place, has been developing accelerating fractures for 2 decades. The fractures are multiplying. The ice shelf is losing its grip on its pinning point. The researchers described it plainly. This is a slow collapse, already underway. By December 2025, scientists had also detected hundreds of glacial earthquakes, iceberg-generated seismic events, occurring at Thwaites' ocean boundary between 2010 and 2023. 245 out of 362 detected events were clustered at the glacier's marine edge. Icebergs capsizing, crashing back against the mother glacier, with force enough to send seismic waves thousands of kilometers. On December 31st, 2025, PBS NewsHour reported live from the Southern Ocean as a team of nearly 40 researchers departed New Zealand on a 2-month expedition to drill into Thwaites directly, to lower instruments through the ice and into the water below, measuring in real time what the warm ocean is doing to the ice. In February 2026, Euronews reported that UK and Korean scientists had completed the first ever hot water drilling into the main trunk of the Thwaites ice shelf, an area so dangerous, so crevassed, so fast-moving that it had never been attempted before. This is one of the most important and unstable glaciers on the planet, and we are finally able to see what is happening where it matters most. Dr. Peter Davis, British Antarctic Survey, February 2026. 1 kilometer below where the scientists stood, instruments began sending back data via Iridium satellite. For the first time in history, real-time data from inside the Doomsday Glacier. Stand back for a moment. Consider what we know. Under Antarctica's ice, 231 active lakes, pulsing and draining in an invisible hydrological network no model had predicted. A river system that flowed for 1,000 miles 40 million years ago across a continent that was then tropical and green. A landscape 34 million years old, preserved intact under 2 kilometers of ice. 6 million years of ancient air, compressed in frozen bubbles, holding a direct chemical record of Earth's climate. Thousands of life forms, including at least 6 newly discovered species found in January 2025, and bacteria from Lake Vostok that may constitute an entirely novel branch of life, surviving and thriving in conditions that should make life impossible. And underneath it all, the Doomsday Glacier, cracking, fragmenting, hemorrhaging ice at 50 billion metric tons per year, destabilizing in ways that even 6 months ago were not fully understood. Antarctica is not just a frozen desert at the bottom of the world. It is the most complex, most information-rich, most consequential environment on Earth. It is simultaneously an archive of our planet's past, a laboratory for understanding the limits of life, and a harbinger of our future. The discoveries being made beneath the ice are not incremental. They are paradigm shifts. Each one forces scientists, and the rest of us, to revise what we thought we understood about how life works, about how old the world really is, about how fragile the systems that sustain civilization actually are. There is a canyon under Antarctica, discovered in January 2024 by acousticians aboard the Australian icebreaker RSV Nuyina, 2,100 meters deep, 9,000 meters wide, extending more than 46 kilometers from the Adams Glacier front. It had never been mapped, never been seen. It was there all along, waiting. And Antarctica is always waiting, and it is not finished revealing itself. We began this journey with a question. What is Antarctica hiding? The answer is everything. Ancient air, ancient life, ancient worlds, the fingerprints of a planet we barely recognize, warm, forested, alive in ways utterly unlike today. And underneath the ice right now, a warning, an unstable, fracturing giant whose collapse could reshape civilization as we know it. Scientists are racing. They are drilling through kilometers of ice in Antarctic winter. They are sending robots into pitch-black waters under the ice. They are launching satellites to watch the surface for millimeter-scale movements that betray what is happening miles below. They are working against time, against a clock that Thwaites Glacier is counting down. Whether we are ready or not, what they find, what they are finding right now, as you watch this, will determine not just our understanding of the past, but the future of every coastline, every delta, every low-lying city on Earth. The forbidden continent is forbidden no longer. It is speaking. The question is whether we are listening.